Hi everyone, it's LadyJenevia. I have now watched The Boys Season 2 finale, and it was so good. Many of my predictions did not end up being correct, but I am not upset about that at all. I find it refreshing to watch a show that is not completely predictable. As usual, this review will have spoilers. I'm going to go through the episode character by character, discuss some plot points, and also throw around some possible ideas about what I think could happen next. We already know we're getting a season 3 after all, but there will be no heavy-handed predictions. This is all just for fun. Not to mention we are about to have a lengthy hiatus because people insist on not wearing their masks like they should. If at any point my energy seems a bit off, that's probably because I've been getting throttled by Lionsgate and their automatic copyright systems that refuse to let me just post my Knives Out video essay in peace, despite my many attempts to re-edit it into being something acceptable for their bots. But enough of that, on to The Boys. I'm starting to get the impression that they're setting up a lot of things on the show for multiple reasons. It makes the world feel more immersive if you have a broader perspective of what exists in it, and if you have more characters, plots, and entities simmering in the background, then you can revisit them later on if the inspiration strikes. But beyond giving yourself more options to work with, I do think that the people that are running and writing this show like to plan things out pretty far ahead in advance. If you go back and watch season 1, you will see that they were setting up the Lamplighter storyline very early on, but we did not get to see the full picture of all of what had happened from all different angles until we got to season 2. Shawn Ashmore did not show up until midway through. If we keep all of that in mind for discussing not just the season finale, but the entire second season, there were a few things that I think have been planted or left open to return to, perhaps in season 3 or even in later seasons. I'm assuming that they'll get renewed for further seasons. It's very clear to me that they are not running out of ideas anytime soon. For one, there's Cindy, the former patient from the psychiatric facility that Stormfront had been running those experiments in. They showed Cindy getting into a car and making their escape, so that felt a lot like a post-it, a reminder of sorts to not forget them for if and when they will be brought back into the story. Stormfront was defeated, so I would definitely wager that she's out of commission for the time being, but she's not dead, so if they were to slap some high-tech prosthetics on her, pump her full of Compound V treatments, she could easily be brought back to make more trouble if they felt like they had a good idea for a story to do that with. Then there is the church. Now, I really thought that they were setting up the church to have a much bigger presence in season 3, but I was very caught off guard when they ended up killing the leader of the church. I don't really know what to make of that right now. Maybe the Deep will assume a more prominent role in the church. He did not get his spot back in the 7, and I do think that he is thirsty for attention and adulation. So if they wanted to have some commentary about those extremely wealthy televangelists, that could be something interesting to explore. While we're talking about the church, do you notice how they're constantly referencing frescoes? Would you like a fresca? That is happening for a reason. Remember this season when the boys had repeatedly referenced almond joys, and then we fast forward a couple episodes and we got the plot twist of Black Noir being allergic to tree nuts. I don't know what the frescoes mean. Maybe there is a chemical in the frescoes. Maybe the church was originally a company that produced these frescoes and that's how they had the money to jumpstart a religion. I don't know, but if I were you, I would definitely make a mental note of that because I can definitely see it coming back into play, presumably in season 3. The Deep was mostly useless this season to me as a viewer. Now, I am not saying that he lacked entertainment value to everyone, but he has always been my least favorite character on the show. I'm fully acknowledging my bias in this, and it's annoying when he eats too much screen time up when I would much rather watch more or less any other character. I don't think he's going anywhere though, so I will just have to grin and bear it. I really liked how A-Train's seasonal arc ended up wrapping up. It was really funny when he just popped up in Annie and Huey's car, though it's a bit unnerving to know that this is something that he can do. He can find more or less anyone in the city in a matter of hours. But the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So no matter how corrupt you might become from being on the Seven, we can all come together to defeat a common enemy. Not Mother's Milk did not end up having a whole lot of material in this particular episode, but one thing I do want to mention about him before moving on to the next talking point is that there was that car wreck that he was in with Becca and Ryan, so Stormfront used her powers to shoot beams at the car, and then the car went flipping over and over again. So then Butcher ran over to try to help everyone out of the car, but really mostly just help Becca out of the car. Mother's Milk got out of the car himself, and he looked fine. He didn't look injured at all. Ryan was okay, but we already know that Ryan has superpowers. So I'm looking at this and immediately I'm getting suspicious and I'm thinking to myself, does Mother's Milk have superpowers? I was going to just leave that as an open-ended talking point, but then I got to Googling and apparently Mother's Milk did have powers in the comics, so I think that they are going to develop that now in the show, and I'm excited to watch that. It also helps to make things more evenly matched in future conflicts between the boys and the Seven. Now we move on to Homelander and Stormfront. Besides the obvious matter of it being very, very satisfying to watch both of them be defeated for the time being, one thing that we should note is that Homelander is aware now that Vought made a deal with Butcher to get Ryan away from him, so I think we're going to start exploring more of that conflict between Homelander and the larger Vought Corporation. Hopefully this means that we will get more scenes with Giancarlo Esposito because he is just fantastic. I really loved the line that he had in this season finale where he said to Butcher, "I can't lash out, that's a white man's luxury." Ooh, that was brilliant. See, this shows how smart the writers of The Boys are because they don't need to overly explain things. What they are referring to is a particular stereotype that the Black community has to deal with pertaining to being labeled things like angry or difficult or uncooperative. See, this is how you address racism in a story in an intelligent way. They don't outright say it, but that is what they're talking about. As for Stormfront, when she was already trying to indoctrinate Ryan, I yelled out loud, "Oh my God," and I had to pause the episode and just collect myself because I felt a very visceral reaction when she started saying that. One thing I think we need to remember is that Stormfront had those experiments that she was running on psychiatric patients to try to stabilize Compound V, and I just don't know if that's the type of operation that could be run with just her and Lamplighter. I'm inclined to believe that there are other people involved, so that leads me to believe that this plot point might not be completely over and done with. Do you see? This is why I said that The Boys tends to plant a lot of seeds, so there's all this room to circle back around to pick up where they last left off with all of these moving parts that they have. Stormfront was also mentioned to have a history with the church that they didn't really explain fully, so that could also be something that comes back up in season 3. But one of the most satisfying and entertaining things to watch involving Homelander and Stormfront involved Maeve for both of them. We had Maeve blackmailing Homelander into keeping his mouth shut, leaving her and Elena alone, and also Annie for that matter, letting Butcher and Ryan leave in these really tense situations where it seems like all is lost and someone is about to die. Who saves the day? Maeve. Butcher did not stand a chance against Homelander. Let's be very clear here. You could see that he was prepared to go down swinging and trying to protect Ryan just like Becca asked him to, but who's the one to turn the tide? Maeve. When everyone is fighting Stormfront, but she has managed to overpower all of them, and now it seems like she's going to start killing people, Who turns the tide? Maeve. I love that we are finally seeing Maeve clawing her way back from being disillusioned from all these years of being in the Seven and brokenhearted from being dumped by Elena. She saved Annie more than once now. She saved the entire team of the boys. She even saved Ryan. The Maeve redemption arc has arrived, and I'm here for that. Annie and Huey were really sweet in this episode. We've got her finding her way back to her faith, and they also reaffirmed their love for each other. When Huey said that he was absolutely going to keep clinging on to Annie, yes, we love wholesome content. I like that Annie is back at Vought now because now she will be able to work on trying to destroy them from the inside. But I also love that the entire dynamic of the Seven as a team has shifted. Annie has these new tensions with Black Noir since they fought, and Maeve also fought with him, and she was the one who weaponized his allergy against him to take him out of the fight altogether. Annie and Maeve seem like they're aligned now. A-Train reached a sort of impasse with Annie since they had their tensions before, but he also helped her and Huey so he could get back into the Seven. But Homelander is really the one who is on the outs with more or less everyone. I would also hope that A-Train would not forget that Homelander aligned himself with a Nazi. So that man is not now, nor will he ever be, your friend. I'm assuming he already knew that though. But the Deep is still out, and Stormfront is now out, so there is another opening in the Seven. Maybe that's how Soldier Boy will get introduced in Season 3. It's already been announced. Jensen Ackles is coming. Yes, ready for that. So could he be the one to fill that vacancy? Possibly. And if so, I'm fine with that. But circling back to the Annie and Huey cluster, one thing we need to remember is that they finally talked about Huey's mom. She is not dead. She abandoned them when he was very young. That to me sounds like a setup to bring her back into his story. I'll just come out and say it. How about we get Meg Ryan to play Huey's mom? If you did not already know this, Meg Ryan is Jack Quaid's mom, and she's a legend, but she also hasn't been as prominently seen in recent years as an actor, but Jack did say in an interview that she visited him on set one time, and she seemed really impressed by the show. So can we do this? Could we make this happen? I would like to see it. Finally, Huey has decided to go work in politics. If he thought working with the boys was dirty and bloody, oh boy, wait till he learns about how dirty and bloody the world of politics is. Not to mention his new boss, Victoria Newman. That was a plot twist I did not see coming at all. After watching the season finale, I looked up the character, and apparently Victoria was originally a man in the comics, Victor Newman, or Vic the Veep, but he was also just a human in the comics, so Victoria, as we saw in the season finale, is a soup. That really opens things up to diverge even further from the source material. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with her as a character. I'm presuming it will be a different story that offers some sort of commentary on the nature of politics and politicians. Very interested in knowing what the boys' take on that will be. It will also be interesting to see Huey finding more of his own path separate from Butcher. As much as the show likes to reiterate time and time again that Huey helps Butcher to stay on a more ethical path, by his standards anyway, why is that Huey's responsibility? Butcher, go to therapy. Speaking of which, let's shift over to talking about Butcher, Becca, and Ryan, that entire storyline. For Butcher's story, we saw how a lot of things that were mentioned in earlier episodes came back around. Butcher told Becca where he was staying. Now, early on, I had theorized that she was going to sell him out to save her son, but instead she ended up using that information to track him down and ask for help. So I was right that the line was not insignificant. He didn't say that by accident. It was very deliberately included. Also, she said way back during their reunion that he would try to separate her from Ryan if they were to get out of there, and she was right. Yes, Butcher changed his mind, which shows that he is growing as a character, but it doesn't change the fact that he made that deal in the first place. I thought it was interesting though that Becca knew Homelander's origins. She knew he was raised without a mother, and that was why she was stressing to Butcher how important it was that she helped to raise him. She said that Ryan would pose a danger to society if he were to grow up without a mother. He would end up just like Homelander. Everything was happening so quickly at the end of the episode that I could hardly keep up. Becca died for real this time, and for a split second, I thought that things had come full circle, where even though she couldn't have Butcher's baby, because I had always assumed that she was pregnant, he would still end up having to be a sort of father figure to Ryan. But then he sent Ryan off with Mallory and the CIA, and that to me is still an alarming plot development, because they didn't tell us where he was going or who was going to raise him and try to keep him on a good path. I don't think we're out of the woods with that yet. One other thing I want to mention about Ryan's story, though, is that yet again, we had a Zack Snyder DCEU reference. I was living for it. You had a young boy with superpowers panicking because he is experiencing sensory overload since he has not learned to train and hone his senses. So what does he do? Cry out for his mum. That is a Man of Steel reference, and you will not convince me otherwise. They did great work playing on this idea that Ryan is in a precarious place in his development, though. He can be swayed in different directions depending on who is guiding him. Stormfront and Homelander were trying to get him to use his powers and trying to have him channel hate to do that, and it wasn't working. But then when he finally gets his powers up and running and uses them on Stormfront, you could make the argument that this is coming from his love for his mom, or his fear for her well-being, or his hatred for Stormfront for putting his mom in danger. It's very open to interpretation, and I like that. It makes for a more interesting viewing experience, so I don't think we got a clear sense of what his motivations were. Finally, as always, we have saved the best for last. Frenchie and Kimiko. Wow, where to begin? We finally got the bazooka moment, and I cannot believe how short it was. I was robbed, but it still makes for a nice still frame that nicely sums up their relationship. And later, when Becca shows up, they're both so cute with her. We have Frenchie welcoming her with food, outstanding, and Kimiko kept staring at her with the biggest heart eyes. You know what? When you take that into account, and the fact that earlier on in the season, when Annie first showed up to the lair, Kimiko welcomed her with a big hug. I think Kimiko wants girlfriends. Kimiko wants a girls' night. Really think about this. Were there all that many women around her when she was forced into being a soldier? She was mostly just with her brother and looking out for him, and then she was being held captive in a cage by Vought, presumably smuggled over, and then once she joins up with the boys, it's all men she's surrounded by. Give Kimiko some girlfriend time. Now, obviously, I want Kimiko to have more scenes with Frenchie, but moving forward, I would also like for her to get to hang out with Annie and perhaps Maeve too. Let them be friends. Just because you are busy trying to overthrow an evil corporation does not mean you cannot find time to just relax and hang out with your girlfriends. Jumping ahead again, Frenchie now knows multiple words in Kimiko's language. I've gotten some questions over the last couple of weeks about Frenchie and Kimiko and whether or not I am upset that they don't have more scenes together on the show. Now, obviously, I would love to have more scenes of the two of them. However, the show has built up this massive ensemble of characters, and you can see that they try to give material to most of them in every episode, which means that mathematically speaking, you can only have so many minutes per character. What I love about the scene of Frenchie and Kimiko, where they are communicating using her language, is that it helps to fill in those blanks. Just because we don't get to see all of these scenes of her teaching him doesn't doesn't mean that we cannot still receive that information. Clearly, they've been spending a lot of time together for her to have been able to teach him that many words. Would anyone like to write some cute, fluffy fics of her teaching him words in her language with touching hands? I need it. Send me the AO3 links now. Preferably on Twitter or on YouTube, I don't care. But be sure to follow me on Twitter if you're going to tweet me, because I won't see your notifications if you're not following me. That's one of the best changes I've ever made to my Twitter settings, by the way. I highly recommend that you do the same if you have a Twitter account. Then, later on in the episode, Kimiko asked Frenchie, "Do you dance?" And he said, "Of course I dance. What is the point of life without dancing?" That was when I knew. We are going to see them dance. It has been planted. I am manifesting it. Give me Frenchie and Kimiko baking, and give me Frenchie and Kimiko dancing. I need it for self-care. Those cute little spins he was doing with her at the end, I could cry. Category is soft, wholesome content, and the Golden Globe goes to Frenchie spinning Kimiko as they exit the pawn shop basement. I'm about to get heart palpitations. Also, Kimiko laughing at Stormfront because she knows she's about to stomp this knot into the ground. A moment most pleasing to me in my viewing career. Do you like the parallels that they are serving us? In the season 1 finale, Kimiko was looking at her reflection in the mirror. She touches her throat and lets out a huff of sorts. It was foreshadowing her getting her voice back. And then in the season 2 finale, she laughs. Her vocal cords work. Kimiko speaking is coming. I feel it in the air. Season 3 finale, she will speak. Hopefully to Frenchie first. What do you think she will say to him? How about, "I love you. You're my person. Let's buy a house together. Will you teach me how to make a souffle?" So many options and so little screen time. Can we just get rid of the deep and give those minutes of screen time to Frenchie and Kimiko? It would be a much better use of all of our time. Then, of course, Kimiko, Annie, and Maeve beating the dog shit out of Stormfront is the best thing I've seen on television in years. It was a cultural reset. Stan the R-rated Powerpuff Girls. Charlie's Angels 2019 might have flopped, but I finally have a new aspirational girl gang trio. Can we make this team up a regular thing between the three of them? I need it. I have rewatched that clip of them beating her up more times than I can count. Now I'm going to leave things at that. Thank you everyone for watching my reviews of The Boys, both the season 1 video essays and the less formal weekly uploads for season 2 that I've been posting over the last few weeks. Let me know if you want me to do weekly videos on The Mandalorian season 2, since that's going to be starting up in a couple of weeks. And I love Pedro Pascal. I've been thinking about doing that, but I haven't decided quite yet. I will post my Knives Out video whenever I figure out how to get it through these horrendous copyright settings that Lionsgate has, and I don't know why they have them like that. I can assure you I will never ever make a fancy video essay on a Lionsgate film again, because they have made my life hell for the last few weeks. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe because it really helps out my tiny channel. Follow me on all my social medias. Everything is LadyJenevia, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.